Greg.
Yes. Um, wow. Welcome to Let's Have a Fefe. We are doing a special edition of Let's Have a Fefe for Flagstaff Pride. Happy Pride, happy Pride, happy Pride.
Hang on, I'm still working on my lighting issue. It always looks weird. It always looks different on the live than it does. It's fine.
Yeah, I look a little different than I saw in the mirror, so.
I know. I'm like, this isn't what it looks like on my side, so we'll see what this looks like. It's fine. It's fine. We're fine.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'm good. Anyway, this evening we are going to talk about San Francisco Karen. Nope, that's old.
No, we're not.
Wow.
We're not talking about any of that shit. That was from the Fifi. We're not talking about any of that.
We're talking about
Saturday, not Wednesday, and we're not.
Yes. We're talking about Juneteenth and how to support your trans youth and more on this special episode of Let's Have a Fefe.
We're just, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So.
Welcome to a special episode of Let's Have a Fefe. Sorry, I get into the groove. I'm so used to doing this on Wednesday that I thought, hey, let's just go with it. Welcome to this special episode. We are Arizona's longest running drag live stream, and we are more than just the gossip. We are your Wednesday night conversation usually, but now we're here right now.
On a Saturday.
Yeah. Share this episode with a friend that needs it. I can't say what I usually say. Anyway, right. We're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, and I believe we're on the Flagstaff Pride social media channels as well.
I think we are, yes.
We are brought to you by Wigs of a Kind and the Burly Barber. You can get your Wigs of a Kind on Facebook. Look them up on Facebook. Today we are I skipped ahead. You can find the Burly Barber at theburlybarbers.com. Today we are also brought to you by Cavion, Coffee House, Flagstaff, and Flagstaff Pride. Yeah?
Yeah.
You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/letshaveafefe. If you want to tip us this evening, you can tip us by tipping in the tip jar at paypal.me/letshaveafefe. That's my story.
So when we do these special episodes, like we did with the first one for Virtual Arizona Pride back in April, God, that seems so long ago at this point. It was like 3 years ago. We usually try to do something a little bit different while still sort of sticking to our usual format.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided today that we wanted to chat about how to support your trans youth, and specifically if you happen to be a parent of a kid who may be trans. And this is something I think is extraordinarily important, because things are so different than from when I was a kid. I don't know.
Wow, that was so long ago.
It was literally 40 years ago. Like if there had been the support that is so readily available now, if my dad had the resources and things, maybe things would have been different for me.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I always try to do, since transitioning and since coming out really, is to try to be that example for other people, so that they, kids and stuff will now have the access to the things that I didn't have. So in working with that, again, we wanted to talk about, the best ways to support, trans youth, and if you happen to be the parents of trans kids. Um, One thing to kind of think about is that kids don't inherently know or understand the concept of gender roles, or gender norms. These are things that as kids we were all taught, and we're taught them literally from birth.
Yes. Well, now with gender reveal parties, you're just
right
from the beginning.
So gender reveal parties are a thing, and it is literally from birth and before birth. The idea of gender is at the forefront, and even well-meaning parents, will have gender reveal parties, and it's from that second that you announce we are having a baby with this sort of genitalia. Pretty much their entire life from that point on is dictated by gender norms and by gender roles. And you see it in everything from toys to clothes. You have, pink versus blue, dolls versus trucks, or dresses versus pants, pretty versus strong. These are all words and concepts that are gendered, which is fascinating in itself, really.
So from the beginning, and I was kind of guilty of this, with the glam baby, I started, thinking, okay, well, she's a girl, and I need to buy pink stuff. I love pink stuff, so I wasn't.
Right. So your favorite color is pink.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my god, I'm totally getting all of this. But then I thought, oh my gosh, but how do you unlearn that?
Well, that's the thing, is a lot of it is stuff that we don't even really think about, because it is so ingrained in our own psyche.
Mm-hmm.
But just, if you're a parent, or even if you're an aunt or an uncle or whatever, just look at your kids' toys and your closet, and even their eating utensils and things. Little boys get, plastic bowls with trucks and, things like that on them, and little girls get things with flowers and
and princesses.
Right, even their towels, everything is gendered, and it's crazy when you think about it. And then as you get older, you're like, oh, this deodorant says it's for a man because it's black and it's silver and man.
And then I see an ad with a strong man holding it, and I think, oh, I'm gonna be that guy.
Right. It's crazy how much of our lives is sort of dictated through gender and things that are gendered. This is a man's water bottle. Actually, here's this is funny. So so this is the water bottle that I am currently drinking my super hydrated whatever water out of, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got llamas, and it's teal, and I would say most people would not buy this for a dude.
If you bought that for me, I would be ecstatic.
Okay, well, you would. This is my other water bottle. This is my manly water bottle.
That's your dude water bottle.
Right. And, well, what's funny is it has nothing to do with it being like a dude water bottle. I got it because it keeps my water cold for 24 hours because I hate room temperature water. But this is more something you would see like a man using rather than patterned llamas. So everything is gendered. It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to kids, a lot of it is learning to kind of keep communication open and learning to keep an open mind, because not every kid that says they don't like gendered things or likes things that are designed for the opposite gender is trans.
Mm-hmm.
The key is to listen. Little girls who want to play with trucks and Legos and army men are not necessarily trans. Just like little boys who like to play dress up in princess dresses and play with Barbies are not necessarily trans. And I think one thing that as adults we need to be very mindful of, and, because especially if we want to be open-minded parents and, supportive and whatever, one thing that we have to be very mindful of is that we're not forcing our own narrative onto our kids.
So I remember I used to have one of the original Tonka trucks that were like made of metal. Like if you smashed your finger,
Mm-hmm.
you never have that finger again.
Right, right.
But I always used to put the Barbies in the Tonka truck. Because women could do construction, and I always thought that. But then when I got older, it was like, no. And I was like, yeah, I've seen women. Yeah, I used to put the Barbies in the construction truck and teach them
Right.
to work. Anyway, but I remember, not that my parents meant to do this, but I remember them saying, those are your sisters. Like that. That's almost, I mean, dare I say, it's almost like a microaggression of like.
No, it is, because again, it has to do with gender norms and gender roles. And, we have a tendency to, it can work on either side of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be accepting and we want to be loving and whatever. So as soon as a little boy picks up a dress, oh my God, my child is trans. No.
No.
Or on the flip side of that, the second, a little girl picks up a Tonka truck, no, those are your brothers. Here, play with this Barbie. So we as much as we don't even think about it, often we try to, enforce our own narrative on the kids in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing to remember is that kids are experimental in everything. They'll do things like put stuff up their noses after they were told not to, just to see what it feels like.
I did that.
So,
I stuffed rocks up my nose.
Right. So, and that's not saying that they are going to stick rocks up their nose for the rest of their life, or they're going to turn into cocaine snorting, whatever. It's because they're curious and because they're experimental, and that kids do shit that as adults you're like, what the fuck? They eat dirt. They touch themselves inappropriately all the damn time in places like it just, you're eating dinner and they have their hand down their pants. As adults, we learn, okay, touching yourself isn't inherently bad, but there's a time and a place. You know what I mean? Kids are experimental. So just because they're playing with a certain toy, or just because they are, saying that they like to dress a certain way or whatever, doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be trans or gay or anything within the LGBTQ alphabet soup.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, if a kid who is really trans will 100% let you know. They will insist that they are whatever the gender is that they identify with, not just once or twice, but frequently and for a longer period of time. So it won't be something that'll just be over a weekend where they're like, I'm a boy today, and it's like,
well, let's think on it.
It doesn't, it'll be insistent, and it'll be something that you'll be able to see is they're very adamant about it. They're this is who I am and this is how I feel, not, well, today I'm a princess and tomorrow I'm going to be a frog.
Mm-hmm.
There's a distinct difference. You'll see them often sort of rejecting clothing and toys that they associate with the gender that they were assigned at birth, and not just, oh, I don't feel like playing with this, like hardcore, I don't want this. This is a toy for boys, or this is a toy for girls, because in their mind, with the gender norms and things that they see, that they're exposed to, and this is, and because it all of that starts somewhere in the home.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something that you have to be aware of. If your kid, or if you're an auntie or an uncle or whatever, and you even have to see it with nieces and nephews, start saying and doing things that are an indication that they may be trans, this is where the adults in their life really, really need to step up and be supportive. And again,
pronouns
not about
included.
pushing your own narrative.
I want to say pronouns are included.
Absolutely.
Because I hate when, especially like when I go to places like 1 and 10, and people will say, "Oh no, my parents are fine with it, but they still call me like he or she,"
Mm,
and you're like, but that's not acceptance.
right.
That's like going to the gas station and say I need a full tank, but you only took half a tank, and you didn't go there.
They shut you off at well, we gave you some of the gas.
Yeah, they're like, oh, so we're gonna charge you full price, but not
Right.
acknowledging them is still another step in the wrong direction because they're not feeling the full authentic uh, being of themselves. Because
Right. And studies have shown that having that familial support can absolutely help minimize things like depression, suicidal ideation, and homelessness in
mm-hmm,
LGBTQ youth. And so it's important. Okay, so you're like, well, I know I'm a supportive adult. I support you, but
mm-hmm,
these are some things that you can actually do to really have that sort of tangible support, and especially if you're talking to little kids, you're talking to second grader, third grader. This isn't just for teens. These are for these are things you can do with younger kids. um a big thing is ask them, do they have a different name that they want you to use. They may already volunteer this information. They may say, you know what, I really want you to call me Mike. What you should do in that case is say, okay, you know, you may explain that it might take a minute and they might, you might mess up and call them by the old name, but
mm-hmm.
you'll get it. You'll make sure that you're making an effort to call them by the name that they want to be called.
And refusing to do so is not helping the situation.
No, don't say, well, I know you as this, so I'm going to call you this. No, don't do that.
Or I
Don't do
gave
that.
birth to you, and this is the name I gave you. I've heard
Right.
that one before. Um, that ugh, that just sets people.
No, don't do that. Um, if they tell you that they are feeling like a gender that they were not given at birth, respect that and use the appropriate pronouns. They may not, if it's a younger kid, they may not understand the concept of pronouns.
Mm-hmm.
But, if your child who was assigned female at birth comes to you and says, I want you, I'm a boy and my name is Roger, then you need to call them Roger and use the appropriate pronouns.
What if
And just something that's simple, like it's so incredibly validating. Like imagine how validating it is for an adult,
mm-hmm,
for a kid to have that. It's like, this is awesome,
mm-hmm. That's yeah. Um, what was I gonna ask you? Is there like a time and place to like acknowledge that with the family? Because I imagine that there has to be a time where you say, "This is Roger," pronouns he, him. You know, is there?
So that's something that is actually really important to talk about. All of, especially in the immediate family, so everybody that lives in the household
Mm-hmm.
needs to be on the same page, as well as any immediate family members that you come in regular contact with. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So that's a discussion that absolutely needs to be had, and it needs to be, so this is what they've told us. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to start doing this. And I need, everybody to really be on board with that. And if you have family members, adults, siblings, whatever, that aren't willing to do that, that's a conversation that needs to be had. And that needs to be, well, if you're going to be in this house, and this is like talking about like aunts and uncles
Mm-hmm.
that visit or whatever, people that you see regularly. It's like, well, if you're going to come over, then you really need to respect this because this is what it is. um and with siblings and with other parents or other people that are in the household, there really needs to be put to them that it's really not an option. This is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
um that's things like finding a a support group. for, for the parents, for the kids, for everybody, is absolutely key, and being able to educate yourself about the trans experience as well. In Phoenix, we have AZ Typo, which is Arizona Trans Youth and Parents Organization, and they are, they're fantastic. And a group like that is perfect for families that have kids that are coming out as trans, because coming out as trans at a young age, even at an older age, but even more so at a young age, it doesn't just affect the individual. It's really something that everybody needs to understand and come to terms with. And with places like AZ Typo, they have groups where they talk to the family and the siblings and everybody, so that everybody really understands. And I think that's amazing. One thing that can be a tricky thing to talk about is school, if it's a school-aged kid.
School's hard enough. Shit.
One thing that I think is important is to talk to teachers and administrators about what protections are in the school for trans kids, because this is not just something that pops up once in a while. This is becoming more common as people are more accepting and education is more widespread. Some families will talk to their kid about possibly going to school as their assigned gender, at least for the time being, at least for a little while, and then being their preferred gender at home. And that opens up a conversation about education and acceptance, and sometimes it can take time because people can be afraid of things they don't understand, and that sort of thing. And it's not.
Does that slow down the process? And is that like mentally defined? I mean, like if I said I was a girl and I walked into a place and I felt like that's my true self, and I had to spend like during the day. I mean, technically this is what I do, but anyway, but if I had to spend if I had to spend during the day as a boy, but I know that I'm a girl on the inside, does that like play mental games? Does that like?
I would say not necessarily. I think that's where communication and having those discussions it helps, because it's in the adult world, most of us do that anyway, just like you said. Those of us that are involved in the leather or kink communities don't go to work in full leather or like BDSM. You know what I mean?
I mean, though, I might enjoy work a little more.
a lot of us sort of do that anyway as adults, and it's not, the thing is helping the kid understand that it's not forever. It's and that's where talking to the school and figuring out. I know people that have done a similar thing where they're like, all right, well, while we navigate this, you're going to have to go to school as Jimmy. When you come home, you can go back to being Rebecca, but for now, this is while we figure it out.
Not Rebecca.
While they talk to school and whatever. And if they find out that the school doesn't have things that are in place to protect trans kids, I know people that have pulled their kid from the school, put them in a new school as their.
So are they starting over? Oh my gosh, that's so much. I'm so much about the psyche of when like you're young.
So think about it. You can start as a clean slate. If nobody knows who you were before, we can pull Jimmy out of this school, start Rebecca in this new school, and she starts on a clean slate. Nobody knows the difference. You know what I mean? I know people who have done that with their kids. And again, it's all about communication and education and being willing to really talk to schools and talk to the administrators and talk to the teachers, because if the teachers and the administrators aren't willing to support and be on board with it, in the long run, it's going to be detrimental to their mental health. Period.
So we're talking about school. I know I have experienced. I can't talk about things in particular, but I do know that sometimes educators can have a hard time what am I trying to say? Going from one name to another, or seeing the gender on the paper as male or as female, and then not making the change in their mind. That's why I was asking. Like, that has to play like a serious game on the children's psyche, because
for sure,
especially like you take them out of a school, do they think, oh, something's wrong with the way I am, or because I remember coming out. I know it's not the same thing, but I remember coming out gay, and my mom like telling me she can't tell certain people.
Right.
So
and that's kind of where the parents really have to be an advocate for their child, and they have to, depending on the age of the kid, they have to really teach them to be able to advocate for themselves as well. And which can be hard, but sometimes it's, if someone says, okay, well, do we have, Jimmy in the class? And they're like, actually, it's Rebecca. You know what I mean? But again, this is where, parents really need to be able to step in and advocate. And this is why it's important to talk to teachers and stuff too, so that the teachers can advocate for it. And, I think more and more that's happening, which is amazing. Some other little things that you can kind of do it at home and stuff too is, talk to your kid about what changes they'd like to see as far as, their wardrobe or their room decor. Something simple like that can make a world of difference. Maybe you have, maybe you put up this wallpaper, you painted it this color, and they're like, I really don't want it. I would really like it to be, orange, and I want She-Ra, and it's like, okay, perfect, let's do it. So that's little things like that can really make a difference. And again, educating yourself about the trans experience. There's so many resources out there. That claiming ignorance at this point is.
So some of the high schools, I think some of the high schools have GSAs. Do they have?
Yep.
Would that be a resource?
Absolutely, it can be. GSA used to stand for Gay Straight Alliance, and I believe it stands for something else now, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head.
I don't remember either, but what I was leading to is that organizations like GLSEN help. I know in Arizona, a lot of the GSAs help. GLSEN helps a lot of the GSAs by educating people and giving them resources to say, hey, if you don't know the answer, we do, and we can tell you where to go. So if parents are wondering, like, what can they do? Also, I don't know if PFLAG is a good thing, but I know that PFLAG has a lot of discussion groups, and I have heard remarkable stories about parents turning their views around and saying, oh, I didn't see it like that. Also, I'm not sure if trans spectrum goes as young as we're talking, but trans spectrum,
I think they start at like high school age, like teenagers.
But still, that's still like a young age. You're barely figuring out what's going on with your body. You're trying to feel independent, but you're like, I'm not independent. I still live with my mom. You just got all these things going on. You're trying to take care of your skin and figure out who you are all at the same time. So, I just hope that as we discuss this, I wish there were more people watching, but um,
I know.
I
I know.
I wonder if, I mean, we could probably do another show about it, but I just I always worry about the childhood experience, because myself, I mean, I always say like genderqueer because I'm all over the place, um, but I always wonder about those kids that truly know who they are, and then they get stuck in like rural Texas
Mhm.
or rural Arizona, and they're trying to find somebody to talk to, but uh, your dad is the principal, and your uncle is the math teacher. You know what I'm saying? Um,
That's I think that's where things like PFLAG come in handy, because the what's kind of nice these days is, in most places, there are still places where things are a little sketchy, but in most places now, kids have access to the internet. Kids have smartphones and they can get online and they can search for things. Um, and things like PFLAG, I think, comes across as almost outdated these days because there's so much else out there.
mm-hmm.
But for a lot of these rural communities and for a lot of the smaller communities, PFLAG is really the what everybody hears about, what everybody knows about. Everybody knows what PFLAG is, and PFLAG will still be able to find resources, whether it's support groups, whether it's therapy, whether it's you know doctors, whatever it is that is needed. PFLAG is still a good resource to go to find other resources and to get you in touch with things you might need. Um, and like I said, for the most part, having the internet is a godsend for a lot of LGBTQ youth,
Mm-hmm.
because they are able to find things and research things, and and that which is awesome.
Now, if
really.
you're a parent that doesn't mind censorship, I mean, we don't censor ourselves on Wednesday. We being nice today because we were asked to be nice. But if you want if you are all about educating your kids and you don't mind us telling your kids how some of this stuff goes when you become an adult. Because if I had all this knowledge when I was an adult, I have learned so much just by doing this show. If I would have had this in high school, I think I would have been a completely different person.
Right.
Not that I don't like who I am. It's just that I wish I knew. And there are some friends that I think back on, and like I'll go look to see, and I'm like, oh, they did transition. Like I felt that vibe, but we didn't talk about it because
a lot of times you don't have a word for it. I didn't have a word for it. I didn't know that it was a thing, even though, like, growing up in Bangkok, ladyboys are prevalent, mm-hmm. and not anything, like, nobody looks at them sideways. They're just trans women are very kind of forefront in a lot of the culture, and but trans men, however, not so much. So I didn't know that was even a thing. I didn't know that it could be a thing, so when I first discovered the word for it, when I first had that sort of epiphany, that aha moment, it was like, oh, the light bulb went off, and suddenly things started falling into place. Of course, it still took me forever after that, because yeah. So one key thing that I do want to say, then we can move on to Juneteenth. But one thing that I do want to say, and this is something to absolutely keep in mind, is that you need to remember that gender and sexuality are separate and not the same thing. So again, this goes back to pushing your own narrative. So just because you have a little boy that maybe is on the softer side, maybe he is a little more effeminate, maybe
I'm
whatever,
right here.
It doesn't mean that he's gay because, okay, being gay has to do with sexuality, and let's be real, nobody knows what the hell their sexuality is until later.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, it's still questionable. And it doesn't mean that he's trans. Just because,
educate.
Right. Again, right. And again, that goes back to gender norms and gender roles and things like that, because boys are all supposed to be tough and, blah, blah, blah. But just because you have a boy that is more interested in, poetry and art, it doesn't mean that he's going to be gay or that he's going to be trans or anything like that. It just means that he likes poetry and art. Mm-hmm. That's all that means. So, we have to, again, it's about being mindful of not pushing our own narrative because we want to be that super supportive, whatever. It's like, let's not push that on somebody. They'll let us know what's going on. And if it's just a softer boy that really likes, rainbow teddy bears, perfect. Who cares? Like, that's, so that's definitely something to keep in mind, and to, we have to remember gender and sexuality separate, and not to push our own narrative.
That's so hard, though. I mean,
it is. It really is. I mean, it really is.
So I posted, this is a while ago, but I posted about that when I grew up, I thought I liked the color blue because I was told that was like a, masculine color and,
boy color.
Yeah. And so whenever I said, oh, I love pink, it was like, oh, like they don't say it, but you like hear it in their voice, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's not the right choice. Keep in mind, I grew up very conservative, but look at me now.
It's because you like pink that you're gay.
No, well, that. I mean, I liked pink, but what I'm saying is that if that wasn't pushed on me, I would have gone with it a long time ago, and I wouldn't have. Still to this day, sometimes I think about things like I'm wearing blue eyeshadow right now. Like, does that make me less effeminate? But that's stupid. But
no, because you just said you're wearing blue eyeshadow.
I know.
So,
but
no, it absolutely does not make you less effeminate if you are wearing.
But you know what I'm saying.
Eyeshadow.
I mean, but I'm wearing blue sequin too.
Does this blue dress make me look masculine? No.
But stupid things like that fly across my mind, and I'm like, where did it come from? Like, who told somebody one day and said, these are the colors that we're gonna give to boys, and these are the colors we're gonna give to girls? Like, who said that? Like, why? Ugh, it's just so disgusting sometimes. But like I was saying before, if you're not afraid of your child listening to us and us being a little bit vulgar,
parents love us. What are you talking about?
There are a couple of parents that have shared our episodes with their kids. So, but I'm talking to those parents that have not figured out that they can do that. You can watch us on Wednesday nights and give us a test drive. And then, if your kid is like, oh, this is so cool, we're here every Wednesday. But yeah, I have learned so much just sitting here and being like, oh, that goes together. Okay. Anyhow, so I wanted to talk about Juneteenth. We had an incredible show yesterday that I sweated in a wig for. But watching it back, it was good. We had a little bit of hiccup in the middle. No, not in the middle. We did have one in the middle, but in the beginning we had a little hiccup. But it turned out beautifully, more beautifully than I thought. And it was a celebration of Black excellence and Black freedom. Though, as we have seen recently, we haven't really experienced those injustices going away. But I wanted to talk about how it started I don't want to get all date specific because I think that's kind of boring. But I can say 1865. I just don't want to go down the timeline.
Right, go down the whole thing.
Because I'm not a history teacher.
You only have 20 minutes. You can't.
And I still have to do the closing. So, but why it's so important? Let's see. In 1865, after the Civil War, because before the Civil War.
Civil War.
I don't know what's wrong with my mouth. But they weren't allowed to come into like Texas and all the other Confederate states. Because, you know, they were fighting. They didn't like each other. But then after the war was over, because, you know, they lost, they were able to come in and tell the slaves that, you know, newsflash, you've been here for 2 extra years, and you could have left like 2 years ago. A, I would have been so mad. B, I'd been like,
right, I would have been
go.
Like, are you kidding me right now?
I'm like, wait a minute. And that's what people get all upset about. They're like, where's my money? My ancestors want their money. 2 years. Come on. But so it was really popular. It continued to be a celebration until like the early 1900s. It kind of lost its because everybody was leaving the farm and finding jobs in the city. Because, you know, you don't want to work where you were kind of forced to work if you don't have to. I mean, you go into the city, you say, oh, I could do this work and get paid for it? Okay, they're not paying me on the farm. I gotta go. And then it kind of it lost its oomph because, you know, you're working so much that if it fell on the weekend, then you would celebrate it on the weekend. Hence, because it's Juneteenth, it would be kind of weird if you celebrated it on like June 23rd, you know, because some people are like that. Anyway, so in the 1950s and 60s during the Civil Rights Movement, it became popular again because of, you know, the things going on. You know, Rosa couldn't sit on a bus, Martin was walking in Selma, you know, just things all over the place. And we were trying to vote. But, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that people that look like me could not vote. This is where the reality sets in. If you say 1950 and look at the calendar today, that's not that long ago.
My dad was born in 1937.
See? I mean, your dad's old, but...
Yes, he is.
But, but, you know, even that is not that long ago when you think about it. But, damn. It's just so interesting how people are like, well, what are you making a fuss for? Because, and I'm saying this because I have seen it lately, and I'm going to lead into another point. So, hold on. Don't get mad. But, why? Because it wasn't that long ago that, A, people were freed. B, that we got the right to vote. I think women got the right to vote before black people, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
So, what does that say? I mean, not that women are any less, but, like, why couldn't we do both at the same time? I mean, where were we? And then we had the Poor People's March, which was a bit of a success. And we started celebrating Juneteenth again. It even became legal or recognized in Texas. And more recently, it became citywide in Philadelphia, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Right? So, and I think Arizona just did a proclamation, which surprised the hell out of me.
So technically Arizona, it's a state holiday in Arizona. It's been a state holiday since 2016, but it's not a paid state holiday. So you know how, like, the 4th of July is a paid state holiday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Juneteenth it's a state holiday, but not really because
Oh,
we don't get a day off and we
I
don't get
always
paid for it.
so was talking to somebody that watched the show last night, and she said it's so interesting to talk to people because she grew up in Texas. It's so interesting to talk to people that have not celebrated it before. I grew up in California, never heard of it until I started searching my own Black history.
That's interesting considering California is
Very
like
liberal, very
right, right.
diverse. So I um, in doing research, I did find that like some cities in California do celebrate it and request that their city employees, don't come to work and holiday pay and all that. So how does it relate back to the LGBTQ plus community? As we have discussed before, if you're new here, I am a part of the community. This is one of those things that makes me just a little bit different than the rest of the community. I'm handing my piece. This is my piece. And as a Black male, sometimes I don't feel included. So here's my piece to say diversity should be included in your community. How it relates is that I'm saying I want to be recognized. I want to not be invisible. I want to be um, shown a little, rah rah. We celebrate this holiday. We acknowledge that it wasn't that long ago. I mean, ugh, I have to be careful. But so I did see that yesterday. Like, why are we now celebrating this? Uh, because we're in the middle of a political movement, and I repeated this yesterday on our broadcast. It's it's more than just a hashtag. It's more than just a unique movement. We have to get to the polls because as a Black man, it affects me. As an LGBTQ plus member, it affects me. Oh my God, it affects me. I have like blades running through me as we speak because you know I really have to be careful.
Well, I know that there are some folks that are fairly close to us that have basically been told that they need to pick a struggle.
Yeah.
Like you can be Black or you can be gay, but you can't be both. Like pick one. You can't have it all. It's like wait, what?
What I would
The
like to see,
fuck?
what I'd like to see is that conversation turn around, which many people have, is, and we've talked about it on the show. I invite you to watch all the episodes, but invite yourself to the table. Get to be a part of that conversation. Now, don't steal my culture, but be at the table. That's a whole nother conversation. But what I'm saying is that Juneteenth is important because it's a piece of history. It's a piece of my culture. And there are so many different things. I mean, chop it up. But we need to figure out a way to be more inclusive to people. I'm tired. I unsubscribed to a magazine. I mean, I don't really get magazines like the paper ones. I get the digital reader. Um, but I unsubscribed to a magazine because it's apparently gay. But there's nobody like me in the magazine.
Wow.
Say that one more time. I unsubscribed to a magazine because it's a gay magazine. I identify as gay. There was nobody like me in the magazine. Not even in the ads, mind you. If I was in the ads,
How does that even work? Like, how is that even a thing?
Ooh, can I say that without getting in trouble? I can't. I'll tell you next Wednesday. Um,
We're putting that on the agenda.
But that's why I'm saying, I'm thinking about me as a kid. When I was a kid, when I turned on the TV, there was nobody like me. Or I had to watch like BET to find somebody like me. This is where everybody's like, shut up, calm down, pick a struggle. I'm like, but they all blend together. I don't know which struggle to pick, because if I pull one string, it leads to another one. So
right. It's one whole sweater. If you start pulling on one, the entire thing is just gonna unravel. You can't, like, it's one sweater with multiple threads. Like, you.
I mean, you don't walk up to me and say, "Well, that's Felicia. She's a drag queen." Is that it? That's it.
I mean, that's pretty much what I say. But,
I mean, but there's layers. There's.
Right.
But Juneteenth
it's like an onion. You're like an onion.
Yeah. Juneteenth is really important this year because we've had a little bit of a rough patch, to say the least. And it started, not that the movement ever went away, but it started the engine again. And I want people to not, I mean, I haven't been to protest, and I feel like I fight it like inner battle. I haven't been to protest, but I want people to continue to say, Black Lives Matter, and really mean it, and really take it to the polls this year. Because if what happened 4 years ago happens again, I know that those people that said, oh, BLM, 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 yeah, they were a joke. They were just joking. And if you support that person, you don't really support me. You can say all you want, but you don't really support me. So, with that being said, Juneteenth is really important because of the injustices that have happened here in 2020 and way earlier. And it was time, it was like almost like we're saying we need to take a break, not like X in it, but just, to celebrate us and be us as a people, and come in. It's almost like, somebody died in the family, but you still have those dinners, you still get together, but I mean, you just need, you need to come back to ground and then disperse. I know that a lot of people took yesterday off, and it was so beautiful.
So talking about beautiful, real quick, fundraiser is now at $775.
Oh, dang! Oh, I forgot to mention the fundraiser. I forgot it was there.
I'm watching. I can see it. So I'm watching it. I watched it hit up. We hit 750 a little bit ago, and now it's up to 775.
Oh my gosh! So real quick, because I'm being told that we're being queued off, but we could stay on and they could queue off if they want. I don't know, but I'm raising money for Brown Girls Do Ballet, which is really important. We talked about it on Wednesday, because it is one of those things where I'm bringing a piece to the table. I want to be included. I want to be visible, because there are Black girls that dance and feel like, oh, well, I can't really do that. There's that one lady that's like Misty Copeland.
Right.
And that's what little girls are doing right now. They're like Misty Copeland.
Right.
I mean, imagine if you only had one hero.
Fantastic. Donate if you can. See if we can bump it up to 1,000, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it. I can't dance, so this is to support those that can. Let's do that. If we can support the people that can, then I don't have to. It's the truth. Arizona used to have many Juneteenth celebrations in Phoenix when I was younger. I used to attend all the time. I wonder what happened. We're going to have to start them up again. There's a lot of things I feel like I should just start.
Social distancing. We're not starting anything up right now.
Well, I had a virtual one. So there you are. All right, let's read the happy business.
All right, let's get done with this. Let's wrap this up.
We have a show on Wednesday. I'm not sure who the guest is, but we're back on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Arizona time. And then on the 26th, I will be with Drag Story Hour for our last week's guest. This week, last week, whatever. Shambrika Wise for a Drag Story Hour author talk. And that's about it.
Yeah, I don't have anything, so yeah, we're good.
We are brought to you by Wigs of a Kind. And you can find them on Facebook at Wigs of a Kind, or you can find Marissa Sanchez, or you can message us, and we'll send you in her direction. If you saw my pictures yesterday, I was wearing a Wigs of a Kind wig for all my looks except for one.
You're wearing one now.
Oh, yeah, I am, in the picture. It's the same one. And we're brought to you by The Burly Barber. You can make your appointment at theburlybarbers.com. And they only take appointments. You know, COVID helped that out. Special thanks to everyone that supports us on Patreon. You can support us at patreon.com/let'shaveafefe.
And of course, thank you so much to Flagstaff Pride for letting us be a part of this this weekend. They had all sorts of different things happening, and I believe there's still things that are going on until I believe 9 p.m. tonight.
Correct.
So make sure that you are following Flagstaff Pride and check out the other things that they have going on. And yeah, it was great to be able to jump on and do a special thing to be a part of Flagstaff Pride.
And we were also special shout out to Cabillon Coffee House Flagstaff. They're part of the gig too this evening. So that is it for me. We will see you on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Arizona time. This has been Let's Have a Fefe.